Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and I'm here with an updated physical TBR video. I did one of these at the beginning of last year of 2025 where I pulled all the books that I have not read that I own and we talked through them. I already have a pretty good idea of how many books are on my physical TBR because of the spreadsheet that I had tracking things last year. I had a column for all of the books that I already had at the beginning of the year, and then I had a column for books that I acquired throughout the year. So I think we're sitting around 90, which is definitely pretty high, but I'm going to still go through all of my shelves, reevaluate what's actually on the physical TBR. There are books on my shelves that I do not plan on reading. Me and my husband are both readers, and for the most part, we read pretty similar genres. He mostly reads fantasy, but there are some books around the shelves that are ones that he has purchased that I have no intention of reading. So I will not be including those in this video or on my physical TBR. It is just going to be books that I actually intend to read. I do want this next year for 2026 to make reading my physical TBR a priority. My goal is to be under 50 by the end of 2026. Ideally, even less than that, but I'm going to set it at a somewhat realistic. That would mean that about half of my reading would need to be on my physical TBR, which seems like about what I did this last year. So how this video is going to work, I'm going to go around and pull the books off all of my shelves. I will bring them back here. I'm going to put them in my spreadsheet so we have an exact count and that is set up for next year. And then I will talk you through all of the books that are on my physical TBR. So welcome. I'm going to go grab books off of the shelf and I will see you again when I have piles of books all over my floor. I have finished calculating up my totals. Let me grab my computer. I am starting 2026 off with 92 books on my physical TBR. So that means I will need to read 42 books in order to meet my goal of getting it under 50, which I think is doable. I'm setting my goal, I think I already said this, I can't remember. I'm setting my goal at 80 books total for the year. So that means about half of the books I read need to be from my physical TBR. And then I need to not buy books. So that's where I'm sitting at. I thought I'd now walk you through all the books that are on my physical TBR, starting with this shelf, because there were so many on these bottom few shelves that I didn't feel like pulling them all off. So I thought I'd walk you through here and then we'll switch over to the piles that are on the floor. This part of our shelf, these two shelves right here, are the Brandon Sanderson shelves. And I still have a lot of Brando Sando to read. That is why I didn't pull the books off. Several of these are just full series that I still haven't started. So let me walk you through what I haven't read of the Brandon Sanderson books we own, which is honestly most of his books at this point. First off, kind of behind the branches here, we have Skyward. We own the first 3 books. I believe there's 5. Is that correct? I think it's 5. But we have Skyward, Starsight, and Cytonic. I actually started Skyward almost 2 years ago listening to the audiobook, and I did not like the narrator. And so I stopped, and I have been waiting to read it until I feel like I have the narrator's voice out of my head, which I think we're getting close to that point. So maybe that's a 2026 book. It's not on my TBR of like books I am determined to get to. I have a few other Brandon Sanderson books that I am prioritizing, but maybe. Could happen. We'll see. If not, that'll probably be a 2027 book. And then next to that, we have the Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians series. I have read the first one. We have book 2 and 3. I know there's more than that. I don't know how many there are more than that, but I need to read the second and third one and the rest of the series. I actually recently gave this first book to my nephews and they read it and they've really enjoyed the first book, so I need to give them the next one and then probably purchase the rest of the books at some point so that I can continue giving these to my nephews to read. And then we still have Stillheart. We only have the first book of that series. This one is one that my husband has had for like a long time, and so I don't know if they even make these editions anymore, but we'll see. And then The Emperor's Soul is next to that one, Warbreaker. And then we have 3 of the like little books. This is Edge Dancer, Mistborn Secret History, and The Rhythmatist. All books that I have not read. So on this shelf right here, the only one that I have read is the first Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians. So I have a lot to do on that shelf in particular. And then moving down, we get into our big chunky Cosmere books. Some of these are in the Cosmere too, but starting with the Stormlight Archive, I have read the first 2 books. I have read Wave Kings and Words of Radiance, so those ones are done. And my husband has told me I need to read Warbreaker before I continue the series, so that's why I am not on to the second or the third book yet. Not to mention I just barely read it in August, so I'm kind of doing one a year at this point on these books. It'd probably be ideal if I could speed that up, but that's where I'm at as of right now. So I still need to read Oathbringer, Rhythm of War, Wind and Truth. I have read the entire first Mistborn trilogy, but I still need to get to the second arc, which is the Alloy of Law, Shadows of Self, The Bands of Mourning, The Lost Metal. I am waiting on my husband to give me a reading order on when I should read those in amongst all the other Cosmere books. And then the other one I have on here that I haven't read is The Sunlit Man. That one's a standalone. And then we have 2 that my dad actually currently has. He's borrowing them. He has Elantris and You Mean the Nightmare Painter, which I still need to read both of those as well. And then on this bottom shelf, the big thing that I did not pull off is Harry Potter. I did not pull off that series. I am actually currently reading the first one. And that's going to be a video coming to you hopefully in January. So I will have the first few of these read soon. But I do need to read that whole series. I'm only about halfway through the first book. So that's what's on this section of this shelf that I didn't want to pull off because there's just too many. I'm going to move and we'll talk through the books that are in piles on the floor right now. You can't see all of the piles, but I am surrounded by books. These are not in any particular order, just kind of how they came off the shelves and then got shuffled around while I was putting them into the spreadsheet. But we'll just start with the stack that's closest to me and I'll walk you through them. And really this is your guys' chance to convince me which books I should place higher priority on. But starting right here, because this is what's close to me, we have The Strength of the Few. This is by James Islington. We do not own the first book yet. My husband actually listened to it on audiobook and then he ended up buying the second one. We need to buy the first one at some point and then I can read them because this is the second book. This one's been very popular. I need to get to it at some point, but I need to read The Will of the Many first. And then we have several of the Red Rising books. Of the ones that we own that I have not read yet, we have Golden Sun, Dark Age, and Iron Gold. I believe Golden Sun is the next one that I need. Oh, and then we also have Lightbringer. My husband is reading that one right now, so it's in our bedroom. I think the only one we don't own as of right now is the third book, which I will get to at some point. I have only read the first book in the series, so we've got the second one so that I could continue it, and then the other ones have been my husband's reading. He listened to the first trilogy and then ended up reading physically the second trilogy, I believe is how it's typically broken up. So we do own the sixth one as well. It's just in a different room. And then I have City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This one I got for Christmas last year from my husband, so like Christmas 2024, which I do need to read. I originally was on my 2025 yearly TBR, but I got to the point where I was in the middle of so many series that I didn't want to start another one, and so I ended up kind of putting this one off. Definitely still really want to get to this one, hopefully once I have some of my other series a little more under control. A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. This one was actually a purchase from my husband. He's really into magical school books, but I also have been wanting to read this one, so I'll get to it at some point, but it's not like overly high priority. Potentially he will read this one first. We only have the first one in the series so far. King of Scars is one of my most recent acquisitions. This I got from my in-laws for Christmas this year. I have read Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows, and so my next thing to read is King of Scars duology, and then I will be finished with the Grishaverse, I believe. Maybe there's other ones out there, but these are my next ones to read. The Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black, another relatively recent acquisition. I think this will probably be a spring read for me. Feels springy. Empire of Ivory by Naomi Novik. This one is the 4th book in the TBR series that I am slowly working my way through. I've kind of been reading one a year. Is that how it's maybe 2? I don't know. It's been a minute since I picked up the last book, so this one needs to happen relatively soon. And then my final Naomi Novik is Uprooted. This one is another one I think I would love to get to in the spring. So far, I've only read the TBR series by Naomi Novik, but obviously I own several other books by her, and I need to get to them soon because I do really like her writing in the TBR series. So I'm interested to see if it's just that series I like or if it's her writing in general. And then another one that was my husband purchased, but he really thinks I need to read is Blood Over Bright Haven by M.L. Wong. Some point I will get to that one. Book that we've owned for a while and I just have never read is Recursion by Blake Crouch. I've read one other Blake Crouch book, that Dark Matter. That's the one I've read, but I have not read Recursion yet. So maybe at some point. It's not like super high priority for me. Ready Player One is a book that I just feel like everybody needs to read. It's kind of a classic. I have seen the movie, but I would like to read the book at some point. Same thing goes for Jurassic Park. Don't have anything else to say about that one. And then we have the Scythe trilogy by Neil Schusterman. We do have all 3 books. My dad currently has the 3rd one that he is borrowing to read. So at some point when I'm ready to jump into another series, I have these all ready to go. And then I have 3 books that I have for an Around the World in Books video that was originally supposed to go up in December. I obviously have not gotten around to reading them, so I'm tacking this onto my list of books to do for that series for 2026. So quickly, first one is Co-Wives, Co-Widows. Second one is Grandma 19 and The Soviet Secret. And then the last one is Johnny Mad Dog. Hopefully you will be seeing the video with those 3 books in January, if I can make all my reading plans happen. And then we have my Orson Scott Card collection. I've been slowly working through the Ender's Verse, very slowly. I actually just recently read the first book in the 2nd series that I'm reading from them, which is the Shadow series. So it started with Ender's Shadow. I believe the next one is Shadow of the Hegemon. And then Shadow Puppets. And then I believe there's some more after these, which I need to get at some point, but I have been slowly collecting every Orson Scott Card book that I can find in these little mass market paperbacks, so it's kind of becoming like an Orson Scott Card shrine on my shelves. And then I actually found at a thrift store a while ago an entire complete set of a series that I'd never heard of from Orson Scott Card. And so at some point, again, when I'm ready to dive into another series, I have the complete set here to read. And this is the Homecoming series. The first one is The Memory of Earth, then The Call of Earth, The Ships of Earth, Earthfall, and Earthborn. So I have no idea what those are about, but I like Orson Scott Card, so I have them now, and I will be reading them at some point. And then we have my little stack of mystery, thriller, horror books. This, honestly, for being one of my favorite genres, I probably own the least amount of books, mostly because I don't really reread this genre very often, and so it makes sense to just mostly get these books from the library because I'm not going to be rereading them. But the few that I do have is The Hollows by H.L. Tinsley. This one is another one from Christmas 2024. My in-laws got it to me thinking it was a different book. There was a spelling error, but it does sound intriguing, so I do need to get to this one at some point. And then another thrift store find, The Mystery of the Clockwork Sparrow. That sounds like a more middle grade mystery book, so this would be a super fun, in a reading slump, need something to pick me up type of a book. One that I was really hoping to get to this fall and it just didn't end up happening is The Devil in the Marshalsea by Antonia Hodgson. I still really want to read this book, so we'll be picking this up hopefully soon. One of my favorite authors is Dan Brown. I have read the entire Robert Langdon series and I need to start branching out into some of the other ones. So I'm going to start with Deception Point because that's the one that I own. And then my husband actually got me 2 mystery thriller books for Christmas this year. The first one is Whose Body by Dorothy L. Sayers. This is another golden age mystery type of book. I love Agatha Christie. She's my favorite. So it'll be fun to branch out into some other authors from that era. And then he also got me Raven Black by Anne Cleves. This is the first one in the Shetland series, which is also a TV show. So I don't know a ton about it, but I love a good thriller, so down for that. Okay, switching to this side of me, just continuing the stacks. The Trader's Game, this one is another one I don't really know anything about, but I found it at a thrift store, so would like to read it at some point. And then we have the Looking Glass Wars. This one has honestly been on my physical TBR for a very long time, and I just really need to get around to reading it. I got it, what summer would that have been? Summer 2023? When we were in Charlotte for the summer, I found it at a thrift store there. So yes, definitely need to make that one happen soon. The second one by M.L. Wong, we also have The Sword of Kaigen. This one is one that my husband is obsessed with. He's read it. Again, he really wants me to read it, so that one needs to happen sometime, hopefully relatively soon. One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig is one that I actually got for him for Christmas, and neither of us have gotten around to reading it yet. So A Spindles Splintered by Alexi Harrow. I have read one other Alexi Harrow book. It was, what was the name of that book? Something House. Does it tell me what her famous ones are? Apparently she hasn't written, or she wrote that one after. What was it called? I can't remember. I'll put it on the screen if I remember, but A Spindle Splintered by Alexi Harrow. This one's a super tiny little, short story. So should definitely read that one soon because it's so small. Blood Marked. This is the second book in the Legendborn series, which I recently found out is going to be more than a trilogy, which I'm a little bummed about. The Color of Magic by Terry Pratchett. This is the first book that we own in the Discworld universe. Not really sure where you're supposed to start, but this one is listed as book 1, so this is one we got. My husband has already read it. He said it was fine. Unsold by Will White. This one's super random. Oh, and my battery's flashing. Give me 1 second. Okay, we're back. Unsold by Will White. This is one that I got for my husband Jacob this year for Christmas. I found it on some Reddit threads about books for people who love Brandon Sanderson, and I don't know, it was compared to Kung Fu Panda. It sounds fun. So I also want to read this one at some point. It's the start of a whole big long series, so could be interesting. Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. I found this one forever ago at a secondhand store, and I would love to read it, but I have since discovered that there's a trilogy that comes before it, which most people say you can just skip. That being said, most people say you can skip Shadow and Bone before you read Six of Crows, and I really loved Shadow and Bone. So I have decided to go and read the trilogy first. I actually currently have it on hold from Libby, the first book of the trilogy that comes before this. So I will be reading that first, and then I will get around to Dance of Thieves. The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter is one that neither me or my husband have read. I got this one for him for his birthday, maybe? I don't know. Neither of us have gotten around to it yet, though. In the Shadow of Lightning by Brian McClellan, another one that I got for my husband. He's read it. He said it was really good. I'm not sure when the second book comes out, which is a little bit of a hesitancy on me actually picking up this next book. So we'll see, but at some point I would like to read this, maybe when I know that there's a second book coming out. The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. This one is one I've seen around on the epic fantasy. I got it from my husband. He tried reading it and wasn't obsessed with it, so he actually ended up DNFing it, but I would like to give it a try. Something about these huge monsters on the cover just really intrigues me. Unfortunately, according to my husband, that's not early on in the book that those show up, so I'm hoping at some point there are giant monsters. And then the next 2 books are part of a trilogy. We only own the first 2. I believe it's trilogy. The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington, and then An Echo of Things to Come. My husband has read. I need to get to it at some point. They're just so big. My husband reads a lot of really big books. I don't read as big of books as him. But at some point, I need to work my way through his stack of really large books. Maybe in 2026, I will try and get through quite a few of them. I am going to set my reading goal a little lower than how many books I read this year, so I can maybe make some time for some of these bigger, really intimidating books. And then a little section of middle grade fantasy books. We own The Sea of Monsters by Rick Riordan, the second book in Percy Jackson. We do not own the first book yet. I will need to find that at some point. I have never read Percy Jackson, so potential video there. Let me know if you would like to see my first time reading Percy Jackson. I have a whole series of videos on my channel where I read popular book series for the first time, and I think that one could be a viable option for the next episode. A super random one that I found at a thrift store, Chasing Vermeer. I know nothing about that one, but could be good. And then speaking of a book series that I haven't read that I'm slowly working on, I've also recently started Fablehaven for the first time. So I do have book 2 and 3 that I need to read. I obviously need to read the rest of the series too. We just don't own the rest of them yet. So I'm keeping my eye out at thrift stores and things like that for them. And at some point I will get the rest of the series and then read it. And then the last one in my like middle grade section is The Thief Lord by Cornelia Funk. Another thrift store find I'd never heard of before. And then after I'd purchased it, I saw Carrie talk about it from Carrie Can Read. And she like raved about this book. So definitely need to give that one a read. And then we are on to my last stack. This is my like classics, lit fic, nonfiction shelf reads. Starting off with a few classics. Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. I have actually only ever read Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. And that is one of my favorite books of all time. I love Tale of Two Cities. So I definitely need to read something else by Dickens at some point. I happened to find this one at a thrift store. I think this is going to be the next one I go with. I know it's not what a lot of people tout as one of their favorites of him, but it's the one that I found. So it's the one that I'm going to read next. Go Set a Watchman by Harper Lee. This is the second book to Kill a Mockingbird. It has been so long since I've read that book that I feel like I need to reread it before I go into the second one because I don't even really remember names of characters anymore. So we'll be reading that one first, and then I can read this one. The Outsiders, potentially one that I need to read soon. We are going to New York in February, and I can't remember if we decided to go to the show or not. If we go see the show of this one, I need to read the book first. The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis, another author that I've only ever read like one thing from, and I've only ever read Narnia. So I'm very curious to read a book that is not in Narnia by C.S. Lewis. So this one's going to be my next one. The Catcher in the Rye, a classic that my husband has read and has told me many times I need to read. Another thrift store find, Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. I love Russian literature. My next couple books are also going to be part of that, and I need to read more. The next two books are actually by Leo Tolstoy. I've read War and Peace twice now, and I need to read something else by Leo Tolstoy. Are you catching a theme? But I have two books. Not sure which one I'm going to get to first, but I have The Death of Ivan Ilyich and Other Stories, and then I also have Anna Karenina. I think I'm probably going to focus on getting to Anna Karenina first, but we'll see. The next one is Say Nothing. This one is a nonfiction book that my husband loves, and I'm not overly rushed to get to this book, but at some point I do need to give it a try. The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. This one is supposed to be like the first detective book, and so when I found it at a thrift store, I had to get it. I've had it on my radar for a while. I would love to do a video of some kind with this. I don't know what exactly. Maybe like reading this one and then reading like a super recent release detective novel, potentially. We'll see. Let me know if you have any other ideas on videos that I could include that book in, or maybe I'll just read it on its own. I don't know. The Light We Carry by Michelle Obama. This one was a gift from my mom. I tried to start the audiobook in like November. Really wasn't doing it for me at the moment, and so I put it back down. If I do not read this year, I really probably should get rid of it. But and then the last one on my physical TBR is The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. This is one that my husband had. I don't really know anything about it, but something about it intrigues me. So I would like to read it at some point. But that is all 92 books on my physical TBR going into 2026. A lot of really good books that I am very excited to read. So I really want to put a focus on getting through these books because so many of them are books that I really am interested in and would love to get to soon. So let me know. Are there any books in this stack that you just love? And tell me why. Convince me to get to these books in, I guess, give me a reading order. Which ones do I need to get to first? Which ones are your favorites out of this stack of books that I have here? This gives you a pretty good idea of probably some of the books you will be seeing me read in the upcoming year. And I will try to include them in videos. If you have any video ideas, including this stack of books, please let me know. But I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. I actually have no idea how long it is because I've had to keep restarting the recording thing, so it could be very long. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one very soon. Bye.